Now, it might be years in the making, but the reason why the professor and I are so strong in our stance regarding Ahsoka Tano's treatment, and if you guys are tired of listening to it, that's fine. I'll just keep saying it on my channel, is because we are. Of course, I can't speak for the professor, but we've had long conversations about this. We are convinced, well, at least I am convinced, or almost convinced, that Ahsoka and her involvement with Luke Skywalker will ultimately replace Luke Skywalker. And if that happens, a dangerous precedent has been set. And that is, you can erase characters, and you can erase their stories, and you can erase their legacies. Now, what does that mean in popular culture? I'm going to go on a little rant for now, and we could talk about it later, or we could talk about it, maybe, the professor and I can talk about it on another separate stream. But what would that ultimately mean if Ahsoka actually replaced Luke Skywalker? And I'm not talking about in prominence. I'm talking about replacing him in his own story. By her being the active role in Anakin's redemption, she has no place in that. Luke Skywalker, only Luke Skywalker, not even Leia had any place in Anakin Skywalker's redemption. It was his son, Luke Skywalker, only. And if that is supplanted, if Ahsoka is if it's her mission to persuade Luke Skywalker to turn Anakin back to the light side, if they do that, they have effectively reversed and replaced Luke's entire story. What does that mean for popular culture? Well, two things. It means if that can be done, if a character replaces another character, a character that was already universally beloved and accepted, just like she is, if she effectively replaces Luke Skywalker and replaces the aspirational hero of the Star Wars saga, well, what does that mean? Two things. The first is she will ultimately be replaced with another character. And that's bad. That's so dangerous. Why would we accept this constant reversal, this constant upheaval, this constant replacement? If this happens, this will be a pattern. This won't stop with Ahsoka Tano. This will start with every character. And this is the danger. And this is why I'm so objective about art, because I focus on the actual piece, in this case, Siege of Mandalorian, as I've been talking about, but then I look at the bigger picture. If Ahsoka Tano replaces Luke Skywalker in his story, 20 years down the road, 40 years down the road, she's going to be replaced. Now, even bigger than that, and you guys can call me far-fetched, and you know what? The thing is, I don't think we'll be around. I don't think any of us here who's over 30 or 40 will be around long enough to see it happen if it happens. But if Ahsoka Tano, Dave Filoni's baby, his character, if she replaces Luke Skywalker, George Lucas's character, what's going to ultimately happen is that Dave Filoni is going to be remembered for Star Wars, not George Lucas. I don't think a thing like this would happen until 60 or 80 years from now, if Star Wars is still prevalent, if Star Wars is still alive and ticking. And I hope Star Wars has a very long history. I want longevity for something like Star Wars. I think it's very important. But notice we've been talking about, all across the internet, I've been hearing this word floating around, and I do not like it. And that is the Filoniverse. The Filoniverse. I'm not against him himself. I'm not against Dave Filoni. He's a creative. He's an artist, just like George Lucas is an artist. And I am certainly not in a camp. I was accused of being a Luke Skywalker fangirl who couldn't take Ahsoka Tano getting so much attention. That's not true at all. I'm scared for a character like Ahsoka Tano and getting this mistreatment. Like, she's kind of being shoehorned in all these things to make everything orbit around her. That's not how you treat a character. She deserves better than that. Just like Rey Palpatine deserved better than that. I feel bad for Rey. I feel bad for what they did to her. Come on, in the chat, you guys are with me? Who feels bad for Finn? I feel terrible for Finn. He wasn't treated right either. He was treated terribly. He was a terrible character. terribly written, who had such great potential at the start of Force Awakens. Rey, the first 18 minutes of that film, massive amount of potential for that character. And what do? They cheapen her. They cheapen Finn. They reduce Finn. Ahsoka Tano is going to be the same. It's going to be harder to detect because we've had a history with Ahsoka Tano. But they won't be able to help themselves. If the writing of The Mandalorian has the same patterns as Siege of Mandalore, mark my words, it might not happen in the events of Mandalorian, but it will happen in the Star Wars universe where something good is being replaced. It first will be Luke Skywalker, and we've seen his treatment with The Last Jedi, so it's already been done. The damage has been done. To further things along, he will be replaced by Ahsoka Tano. And then further down the road, 20 years from now, 40 years from now, Ahsoka Tano will be replaced with someone else. The replacing, the removal of characters. The removal of beloved characters. That's the sad thing. And then ultimately, if everything orbits around the Clone Wars, and if everything orbits around Ahsoka Tano from here on, George Lucas's memory will be erased over time. Maybe not until 3 or 4 or 5 generations from now. But the memory of an artist, the artist who started it all. I don't agree with everything he has done. And if he wrote Ahsoka like Dave Filoni's written her, I wouldn't have agreed with it either. Because I'm objective, guys. It doesn't matter who it is. You know, people think, you're the George Lucas kid. I'm like, no, I'm not. But what I fear, what I'm concerned with is people will put around so much hype around this Filoni-verse that in 40 to 50 years from now, George Lucas will not be remembered. I know that sounds extreme, but with how characters are being treated and how this hype about this is the way, Filoni is our man. I'm not against Filoni himself, but it's not expanding. Notice it's not expanding from George Lucas anymore. It's expanding from the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars were necessary. I love that animated show. I love it to bits. For all its writing flaws, I really do love that show and I appreciate that show. But notice how everything is connecting to the Clone Wars. We had it with Rebels, and that's fine. That makes sense chronologically. Something like Rebels should have happened after Clone Wars. But now with The Mandalorian, what was the original appeal of The Mandalorian? From Thor Skywalker's videos, I thought the appeal was, oh, this is kind of like a Western, away from the Jedi, away from Force users, right? Away from the Force. This is just kind of like at least that's what I heard from videos like Thor Skywalker. When The Mandalorian first came out, it was like this own thing. It was separate from all of the Jedi, separate from all of the Force. What do we see? We see the Darksaber. We now see Ahsoka Tano. I guess there's rumors that Luke Skywalker's coming. Well, that didn't take long, did it? They had to make The Mandalorian beloved, and they have to attach it to something like Luke Skywalker. If the writing was not as it was with season 7, I probably wouldn't be so concerned. But I will do a video. And I'll do a live stream actually on the writing of the Siege of Mandalore. And if you guys have a hard time with me being objective, no, I'm not negative. Do know that I am not negative. But I will stand up for good art and good writing. And at the expense, at the risk of someone like George Lucas being forgotten 50, 60, 70, 80 years down the road, oh yeah, I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to bring that up. The whole Filoni-verse is not the way. It should have been mentor, Padawan, not usurper. No, I won't abide by that. And I will defend my thoughts on that. Because no artist, No artist, especially someone who brought us Star Wars to begin with, no artist should ever be replaced.